how do you translate that to raising children where you're telling them to do certain things or you're not? Like, how do you think about that?
Oh, it's so hard. My kids are 3 and 7. So they're right in the zone of like, they need parental supervision 24/7. But my son, especially who's 7, is like, you gotta let him go. You gotta give him some freedom and independence. It's so hard. Years ago, I don't think I've ever told the story, but years ago, I was talking with Ted Seides. A lot of people will be familiar with Ted Seides. And it was when my son was like a year old, maybe 2 years old. And I forget what it was, but I told him this little thing that my wife and I were struggling with. And Ted Seides is like, Morgan, your job is to parent. Your job is to not like be controlled by your child. Like your child says he wants to do X, but your job is to parent them and to say like, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to do this and you're going to like it. It's a really hard thing, like to find that balance of, look, if you're a parent of a 3-year-old, you can't just say, oh, freedom and independence. Like, go let her do whatever she wants. No, she'll end up dead in an hour if you do that. You have to parent them. But it's such a hard balance to find. And I imagine if there's listeners who have teenagers, it gets exponentially more difficult at that age when the kids are old enough and probably responsible enough to go out and be their own people, do their own thing, leave unattended, not have a curfew, whatever it might be. But you as a parent still view that teenager as the child that they were just a couple of years before that and have such a tremendous sense of responsibility of not only keeping this child safe and alive, but also like guiding them towards the right direction. I have not experienced that firsthand, but I can see and imagine how difficult that would be.
What have been some of the biggest challenges between like going from raising a 1-year-old versus going and raising a 7-year-old? Like, what are the differences there?
Oh, great question. I mean, a 1-year-old can do nothing for themselves. They need you to change their diapers, feed them, bathe them. They have no skills. They can do nothing. A 7-year-old can do a lot, but then they have an attitude. so they can get their own food. You can make your own bed. You can change your own clothes, but you're gonna talk back to me when I tell you to do that. And then there's gonna be some problems. I think that's really what it is. One quirk or one little thing I've heard from people. I haven't experienced this firsthand. I'm sure this is not black and white if people disagree with this, but that boys are harder to raise when they are young, and girls are harder when they're teenagers. And I think I can probably see that. My son, of course, everybody is so different. This is not everyone's has different experience with this, but my son is like so independent. And true to what I just said about like Roosevelt stuff, if you tell him what to do, he's like, oh no, that's not how this works here. I will brush my teeth when I want to. Okay, that tends to be his attitude with things. And as a parent who is like, no, you need to brush your teeth, that can be really frustrating. But there's also part of me that admires how independent he is. And sometimes in his worst behaviors, my wife and I'll tell my wife, I'll tell my wife, like, he's going to be an entrepreneur. He just can't, like, nobody can tell him what to do at all. He'll still get it done and he'll do a very good job, but nobody can tell him what to do. So that's a difficult thing versus when you have an infant, they have no say in the matter. You just do it all for them. So dealing with the personality of them growing personality is the most amazing part. It's the most enjoyable part to witness, but that can be a huge challenge as well.
You've said before that you are surprised by how little control you have over your children in the sense of like the personality that they have and the people that they are going to become. Is like you look at it and you see their quirks develop and you're like, oh, like I didn't have any say in whether this was going to be this way or that way. Is that true? Like, do you still find that to be true?
Oh, it's totally. Even with my 7-year-old son, just yesterday, we were driving and he started talking about this girl in his class, and I said, I've never heard her name before. Like, tell me about that. And he was like, oh, she's my friend. Like, we talk at recess and whatnot. And it was so amazing to me. I think a lot of parents can relate to this, to realize like he has a social life that I don't even know about. I'm completely blind to. And it's amazing because the first 5 years of a child's life, nothing happens without the parent. The kid is just locked to you, and everything, every person he meets, everything he does, every meal he meets, the parent is aware of it. So the first time a parent realizes that their child has a life outside of them, which is probably about 7 years old, just like my son is right now, it's astounding. And it's a little bit scary because in the first 5 years, it's like, I'm so aware of everything that's going on. It's like I'm the CEO of a 2-person startup. Everything that happens, I see it. Every check that goes out the door, I sign it. And at your first 5 years as a parent, it's like that. And then as you have a 7-year-old, it's almost like you're running like 1,000-person startup. You're like, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that I don't know about. And that's good, but it's also a little bit scary.